Welcome and happy Friday, everyone. Josh's severe weather, and I hope everybody's got a great holiday weekend planned here in the U.S. We're coming up on the end of summer here and heading into the meat of the hurricane season. And right now, things are surprisingly quiet. We've been here before, though, last year, and it looks like next week we are going to be watching a couple of areas set to come off of Africa that have some potential plans down the road. Now, a lot of uncertainty until these systems do in fact form, but I'm going to talk about those for most of the video here. We'll also talk about what's going on across the rest of the tropics here and the rest of the world as well. So appreciate you joining me here. And if you could go ahead and like the video and share with your friends. I hope you'll learn something today and share with others. And if you're coming as a new subscriber, I welcome you back. If you're been with me for a long time, I appreciate that as well. But here we go. We're going to take a look at Zoom Earth, and this is a look at the current satellite showing fairly quiet weather across the Atlantic basin. No storms to monitor right through this holiday weekend, fortunately. But we do have an area highlighted for potential development coming off the African coast here over the weekend. It's going to take some time, but we do have some possibilities there. The Pacific, on the other hand, a little bit busier, as you might expect. Two areas that we're tracking. One will be staying away from Mexico. The other one getting a little bit closer to the Riviera here next week. Both of these have a chance of developing. You'll see here, this one is an invest with a 70% chance of development, likely to continue on to the west, but some of that moisture could get pulled northward here, right where we saw the remains of Juliet coming up closer to the Baja California and even Southern Cal. And disturbance 2 also has a possibility to develop, albeit a small one this weekend, but a better chance next week, 60%. And in the Western Pacific, we do have a tropical depression setting its aim here on central Vietnam with landfall expected here tonight. It'll be Saturday on that side of the world. And normally not a huge deal, but this is going to add insult to injury. We had a typhoon hit here early in the week, and almost the exact same location saw significant rain. So Vietnam, Laos, a little bit of northern Cambodia, likely to get some heavy rain tonight into tomorrow, albeit not much wind compared to the last system. Thailand and eventually Myanmar also have the possibility of seeing some local flooding. And this one could find its way into the Bay of Bengal and possibly spin up into a little bit more of an organized system after it enters this portion of the Indian Ocean and may threaten Bangladesh and eastern India here next week as well. So that's what's going on in the Atlantic. A quiet map, no storms since we got rid of Fernan here a couple of days ago, but a potential system here developing next week. It's going to take its time, I think, but environmental conditions are starting to look a little bit better here. Next week, models are a little bit mixed on the future of this system, but I'm going to talk about that in the video here. 30% chance of development likely after Monday. And the next name on the list would be Gabrielle. And this will open up possibly not a floodgate, but at least a more active track coming off of Africa in the coming days as well. But right now, the Gulf, Caribbean, Western Atlantic, not expected to see tropical development, at least coming out of the deep tropics. We are, though, going to be watching this boundary here, which is set up over Louisiana through north central Florida and pulling some moisture out of the Bahamas and out of the deep tropics here, at least the Caribbean portion. So we could see low pressure forming east of Florida here in the coming days. But right now, the odds of that developing further are not super great. So you'll see here, pretty quiet across the Atlantic basin. Here's the front that I've mentioned here. And you are going to see that we are, in fact, seeing some heavier shower and thunderstorm activity moving into Bermuda here this evening. We also have some heavier shower and thunderstorm activity off to the south. There's a weak upper level low here and another weak upper level low here. Both of these creating wind shear and hostile conditions. So we are unlikely to see any development. Another shot of cool air coming down through the northeast this afternoon. We did have some pop-up storms over southern and eastern portions of New England this afternoon. So at least a little bit of welcome rain, albeit not everybody saw those, but you can see the stratus coming across the lakes here, indicating that colder, stable air. And we are going to have to keep an eye on the area offshore here for some low pressure to form, albeit not really a great chance for this to get its act together anytime soon. But again, it's likely going to be something to watch here with heavy rain affecting the offshore waters and maybe some low pressure tracking generally in this direction away from the United States. So right now, things are looking pretty good in this area across the Gulf. We do see showers and storms continuing to push southward, along a boundary that stretches from the Piney Woods region of Texas down through South Louisiana, across the northern Gulf into north central Florida. Lots of rain with this, but no major severe weather. It'll be a little bit of severe weather, certainly some locally heavy rain. If we go back 20 years today, we had Hurricane Katrina. The pattern that allowed that system to hit from the south and east was a strong area of high pressure over the southeastern U.S. Right now, we've got a strong trough, so it's the exact opposite. So we're still getting the heavy rain, but we're not getting the destructive weather that we saw with storms like Katrina. So we'll take that. Here's a look at the Caribbean Sea. Central America getting a little bit spicy here again around Honduras and Nicaragua. This is a portion of the monsoon trough here, producing very heavy rain, some flooding, a little bit of heavy rain as well over portions of Belize, Guatemala, and southeastern portions of Mexico, and some moisture spreading out of the deep tropics across the southern Windward Islands into the Caribbean. But relatively quiet here, and will stay that way, I believe, through the weekend. Central Atlantic in pretty good shape here. You see the monsoon trough is again buried to the south. And overall, we do have sinking air over the tropics, keeping things at bay for the time being. And then we get to Africa, and that's where we see things perking up a little bit more here compared to the last few days. There is a tropical wave here approaching the prime meridian here as that moves across West Africa, and additional moisture, which should link up with it over Chad, Niger, and northern Nigeria. These two come together and find their way offshore here early next week near the Cabo Verdes. I'm going to talk about where that looks like it's going to go here in a little bit. You can see on the GFS model, kind of the little 1-2 punch. Right now, not a lot of rising air over Africa, but there is monsoonal moisture. And tomorrow night might look a little bit more healthy than what we see at this point over West Africa. So that first piece comes off the coast here. It looks like Sunday afternoon or evening, moving off of Guinea-Bissau. We see the second piece progressing across Niger towards Burkina Faso. Again, we have rising air in place. We have thunderstorm complexes like you often see across the northern and central plains during the height of summer, but we don't really have any organization at this point. Now, moving forward past Labor Day towards Tuesday and Wednesday, it looks like there may be enough rising motion for something to try to get going here, at least a weak system near the Cabo Verde Islands. So we're going to be tracking this wave here. That's the area. The Hurricane Center is, in fact, whoops, what did I just do there? Please forgive me here. All right, let me circle it here. So this is the area where broad low pressure may try to form here Tuesday night or Wednesday morning, just south of the Cabo Verdes. And there's going to be stable air in place. There's going to be a northeasterly fetch. So that's going to keep it from strengthening significantly. But this is the area to watch. Over time, models indicate more impulses coming through. And here might be the next one. And you can see it's about 5 days behind the first one. So that's the next area that is potentially going to be highlighted for some development. We'll come back to that in a moment. I do want to show you the Pacific real quick. The odds are great for some sort of development, not just once, but twice. But right now, it looks still like a bit of a scattering of not a whole lot going on. You can see a little bit of a twist here in this disturbance, 93E, I believe. And then the next area is going to likely form out of this monsoonal moisture here. The good news, though, these are likely heading in this direction. We don't expect a direct impact on mainland Mexico at this time. We're going to take a look here at the Nino index. It's dropping. We're not officially in a La Nina at this point, but we're heading in that direction later this fall. A larger scale, that typically means more conducive upper level wind flow for tropical systems to survive in the Atlantic. It's not a slam dunk, not a guarantee. That's part of the picture, but not the entire picture. But we don't have that serving as a deterrent to storm formation. You will see the tropics remain quite warm with the exception of this area off of the African coast. So the area where I'd be watching for stronger systems to develop would be this one here, south and east of Bermuda. We also have to watch the waters of the Gulf and around Florida as well, which are quite warm. We did have some cooling last week behind Major Hurricane Aaron right here. You can see that pocket. But I will say this, those anomalies are starting to get wiped out. We're already beginning to bounce back here east of the Bahamas. I expect that this warming down here, trying to grab my cursor here, this warming we've seen just over the last week will eventually displace the cooling that we saw off of the Carolina coast and to the west of Bermuda. So temporarily shutting down here, temporarily cooling down, but likely to heat back up. And of greater concern is the warming that we're seeing here in the Eastern Atlantic. But I am going to say this, the area that is often primed for long track hurricanes that can intensify quickly and maintain is actually a little cooler over recent days. And a lot of that's probably having to do with the sinking air mass in place. So that's some good news, but that is not going to likely hold things off for the entire season. I do want to show you Ben Nall's tweet here about velocity potential and just a progression here. This is linked up with New York Times. You see the sinking air in brown here. Then we switch off in the middle of September to rising air. And then we eventually go back into some sinking air over time. So there's going to be a good 2 to 3 week window here starting around September 8th or 9th, where the air is going to be rising across the tropics. Does that mean we're going to see thousands of storms? Unlikely. It does mean, though, waves coming off of Africa are likely going to have a brighter future ahead. It also means with the right conditions, we could see things popping up more so in the Gulf and Caribbean. So right now is a great time to get your plans in place because we don't know exactly where the next one's going to go, but we do know that there will eventually be a next one. And I don't want you to get caught off guard. So you can see here highlighting the quieter period that we're in with 30% of the norm here in accumulated cyclone energy next week. The following week, though, we start to bounce back closer to where we are typically there, at least 50%. And then the second half of the month, the switch gets flicked and we go into a much more active period with 110% of normal the third week of September and 140% of normal on the final full week of September. So looking at this, it means we're going to see a little less than typical activity and probably a rest period for the most part over the next week. Then things start to tick up after September 10th, then around September 20th and on, likely going into a much busier pattern. This doesn't say where storms are going to go. It just says we're likely to see more substantial activity across the tropics. I showed this in my video Wednesday, but I'll show it again. Here is the wave coming off of Africa. It has some possibility of being a developed system somewhere between the Cabo Verdes and the islands. This doesn't show where it's going to go after that. In fact, you can see the following map indicates more action across this area, but again, doesn't really give us too many clues as to where things could go. I am going to talk about that though here in the outlook here, looking at the probabilities of development here. You can see maybe low pressure tries to form northeast of the Bahamas by Sunday night or Monday, but again, it would be weak. It would take some time to gain tropical characteristics. So really the only thing on the map to be concerned with, and it's way off, is this wave coming off of Africa by Monday. Talked about it quite a bit, but you can see the odds start to climb. And Tuesday into Wednesday, maybe some healthier action across this area. Again, we're watching the front off the southeast coast. If you look at tropical storm probabilities, not just depression probabilities, they are quite low. And generally speaking, that is moving away. But this system is moving closer to us, at least a little bit closer. And then we get later into next week, and we see there's still a possibility of a named system out here that crosses the eastern and then central Atlantic. And then the following one comes off the following weekend, about 6 days later. So these are the systems we're going to track. I do like to show ensembles. Again, these are all equally probable of happening. You can see the European is getting excited about this area east of Florida here when we get into a Monday, showing low pressure, maybe a subtropical storm at that point. But fortunately, it's heading offshore, so I really don't think we need to stress too much about it. Watch it if you're in Bermuda and eventually Atlantic Canada, though. But here's the area that we are going to be watching just because it's got a lot more runway to go. And this is by next Tuesday. And you can see moving this along here, we have varied solutions from a system that doesn't really develop yet, doesn't have a closed circulation, to a bona fide tropical storm. And the storm that the solutions that show this forming a little bit quicker and being a little bit stronger are likely going to take more the northern track. The ones that are weaker are likely going to get closer to the islands here after about 10 or 11 days. So we're looking at the 8th or 9th of September, which would be the week after Labor Day. So a lot of different possibilities at this point. Here comes the next wave, by the way, behind it. You get some space, though, about 5-6 days between the two. Again, there's a lot of uncertainty here. Recurving options to go near the Caribbean, head towards the Bahamas, come up towards the East Coast. Way too soon to really get into the weeds on that, but a lot could still change. So the European says there are a lot of possibilities, but a lot of solutions showing a named storm. Even though things are not favorable right now, they should gradually turn that way again as we get into about 9-10 days and beyond. Not a lot going on in the Gulf, but we do have some possibilities here. Again, I don't think much happens before the 13th, but as always, we're going to have to watch it closely. Here's the AI. We'll start with the European AIFS. Not really a whole lot of development the next few days, but some possibilities here. It's staying a lot weaker than the European operational. And that is something I would certainly be a little bit more concerned with, because a weaker system will likely struggle to gain the latitude that a stronger system might gain. What that means is maybe more of a threat down the road for the Bahamas, for the East Coast, for Florida, and the Caribbean. Again, when I see something like this, I see a ton of uncertainty, but I do see that there are some possibilities of something happening. We'll get to the other AI models here. This is the Google DeepMind FNV3. I don't know what that stands for, but I will show you here some depression or storm possibilities here by Monday night or Tuesday, near or just south of the Cabo Verdes, a northwesterly track coming off of Africa. And then more than half of these turn it back towards the west. The others keep it going northwest. And you can see here that the Google DeepMind says this is probably not going to threaten the islands, and it's going to be out over the central Atlantic. But what we do need to be watching for is, and I've talked about this in previous videos, rather than a trough picking this up right away, there's actually going to be a high building back into the west, meaning there'll be more possibilities the system struggles to recurve or gain latitude. And that's something we ought to be watching in Florida and on the East Coast. Again, no guarantee this is going to come to the U.S., and no guarantee it's even going to develop into a hurricane, but that chance is certainly still there until we see it form and see where it's going to go. And then here you can see the other Google DeepMind here shows, again, some possibilities for the Northeastern Caribbean, more possibilities for a fish storm, but a few we need to be watching from Florida on up the East Coast. And here's where they end up, by the way. So again, the good news is that we got a lot of time before something like this could potentially happen. One thing we do have to watch, though, the GFS is showing some pretty hostile upper level winds at this point here, which is what's going to struggle to allow these waves to form. You can see an upper level tropospheric upper level trough here. We call it a TUT, TUTT, and that stands for tropical upper tropospheric trough. I just like to call it an upper level trough or an upper level low, but here's one. And that is going to be in the face here of this system, creating southwesterly wind shear. Don't know exactly how the wave is going to develop and how these two are going to jive with each other at this point. It's possible that that trough moves out and gives this system some space to grow. But there's a possibility of another one here. So the GFS says the troughs are going to win here, and we're not really going to have a system with a lot of life. But if these troughs end up moving out or end up being weaker, then maybe the European ends up right. We actually do have a system. Here again is that GFS showing you how our system does, in fact, come off the coast. And you'll see it's a fairly weak system, probably a tropical storm here by the time we get to the end of next week. And moving west because of where our high pressure ridge is, you see the high to its north. That blocks it from coming north, but weakening due to the wind shear that's going to be put on it by that upper level trough. And by the time we get to the end of the following week, we may not have much left out here. Now, it doesn't mean we need to just forget about it because the upper level trough, a high pressure system is expected to build back in. This is going to warm us up around the middle of the month in the east. We're going to go from chilly to quite a bit warmer by the middle of September, meaning kind of that, I don't want to call it Indian summer, but maybe that last little bit of summer here, which sets us up for good beach weather. If that ridge builds in and the upper level weaknesses around the system, tend to fall apart, then this system could try to form in a lot closer to land. That's something we're going to have to watch here. You see the one behind it. Again, it's way out there. We don't know how that's going to play out. Here's the European model, which does hold on to that system that we're going to be tracking here for longer. It's pretty weak, at least through next week. It doesn't develop it as quick as the GFS does, so it gets more of a southern route going here. And I'm not saying it's going to hit the islands, but you can see it's getting a lot closer here and then beginning to fade after that. However, despite the wind shear that we're seeing, and part of that's probably from this big upper level feature here, maybe surface low, this system actually has the opportunity to try to maybe hold on and redevelop. And that's something we need to be watching here. Here's a closer view because I didn't want to give away the secret sauce yet, but here's a European that says we've got a system on the struggle bus that probably is going to be an invest for a long time. Maybe it's a depression, but it really isn't a whole lot to stress about. And then as the ridge builds into the north here, when we get to about September 11th or 12th, then we have a system here that's likely to develop and strengthen. And I don't know where it's going to go here. I think this model of the European says it's probably coming up to the Carolinas, but again, we don't know yet. So just something we're going to keep an eye on here over the coming days. At this point, really can't get specific on it. I'm not here to try to just show you the scariest model and tell you that's what it's going to do, because you all know it's going to change a million times. That would be ridiculous, and that's not what I do here. So I appreciate everybody's time. I do want to leave you with a quick word of encouragement. I end everything on a bright note here, and that is the word of God for the people of God. When Paul tells the church of I think it's Thessalus, I'm not sure what it is, but 2 Thessalonians 3:3, but the Lord is faithful, who shall establish you and keep you from evil. And what this means is that we have a wonderful God. The God is good, and he's the one that wants us to prosper and live fruitful lives, and to choose Jesus Christ to follow and have a relationship as our Savior, as the Son of Man, as the Son of God. And he will guard us from evil by pointing us to an eternity that basically keeps us from not being saved. Your eternity matters. I don't know if you've thought about it as much as I have, but it matters. And you have the option to take one road or the other. The road that leads to Jesus is the road that leads you to an eternal life with him, a fruitful afterlife. The other road, I don't know where it leads. I've heard about where it leads, but I'm not going that direction. I hope you aren't either. But my recommendation to you is, if you've got a couple of extra days this weekend, maybe you're not traveling, or maybe you're just catching up on things, spend a little bit of time in the Word and go to God in prayer and ask him to guide your path. Because I know that's what I'll be doing. It's going to God and saying, look, God, I've struggled. I know I haven't been a great Christian. I know I've done so many things and said a lot of stupid things. But Lord, keep protecting me from Satan's attacks. Keep me from evil, and just keep me on your path, Lord. That's all I ask. Just keep me on your path. And then I can bring somebody back next week and they can go on that path. And then the following week. And that's a wonderful thing. So I appreciate everybody's time today. I hope you all have a wonderful weekend. I'll probably get another video out here at some point. But to be honest, unless something forms off the East Coast, why wouldn't I be honest? We may not have another video here until Tuesday, maybe Monday, but probably Tuesday. Because at this point, there's not a whole lot to chat about. So look for my updates on the community page. And again, if you could subscribe, I'd appreciate it if you did that. Share with your friends as well. We are just getting started here with hurricane season. One hurricane down, probably several more to go. So hope everybody has a great weekend. See you soon.